Welcome to our program Top Shot. I'm Suresh Prabhu. In this program, we welcome a guest who talks to us about various issues which concern you and me. I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Vikram Mehta. Thank you for joining us in this program. Mr. Vikram Mehta, you are wearing many caps different times, and I'm very impressed with the type of journey that you have traveled in your life. You started your career as an IS officer, would have been now a secretary, Government of India, and I would have been talking to you on policy issues concerning the government. But instead you chose a different career and you joined a Shell, the largest multinational company in the energy sector, and now you are the chairman of its India operations. So how do you feel this transition from being a normal government officer 9 to 5 job to a 24-hour job, because you work for almost all the time zones of the world at the same time? How do you feel the change?
Change was not an easy change, because I come from a family of bureaucrats. I'm probably the first person in my family who entered the world of business. But when I left the IAS, I had one interest, and that was energy. Yeah. I'd done my graduate degree in energy. So it was almost a logical decision for me to look for a job in an energy company. And I joined the company called Phillips Petroleum, an American company. And then after 4 years with them, I returned to India and joined the government again as an economic advisor in the Ministry of Petroleum and with the public sector. After that, I joined Shell in 1990. And so this journey has actually been a journey between the public sector and the private sector. And it's been a very interesting journey, because the one consistent strand of that journey has been my interest in energy. So I'm very glad. With hindsight, I have no regrets.
Oh, great. In fact, that shows that you are enjoying your job. Tell me something, right now, our biggest concern of the country seems to be energy. We want to keep growing, and we want to keep growing. That means we'll have to necessarily consume more energy, which is not available within the country. So we have to import all the time. It looks like that even the world doesn't have enough energy, really. Though we have a lot of energy within ourselves, latent energy, to do more. But do you think we'll be able to sustain this in a manner that is happening today? Are you happy with the energy policy that we are pursuing in the country today?
No, I'm actually very unhappy with it. It's not because I think that individual members of the government, both in the bureaucracy or in politics, are unaware of the importance of energy. It's because, one, I don't think the institutional structures that we have with regard to energy are a cohesive structure. So we have, for example, 6 different ministries who are responsible for energy. So although we talk about an integrated energy policy, the reality is that we don't actually have an institutional framework that allows for integrated decision making.
That's it.
Secondly, the growth of demand in energy in India is far exceeding the development of indigenous supplies. I mean, take oil. 20 years ago, we used to import 30% of our oil. Today, we import 70%, and we only produce 30%. The third consequence of a lack of an energy policy is the consequence on the environment. I think there's too strong a link between economic growth, energy demand, and environmental degradation. And unless we break that link or weaken that link, we're going to suffer the consequences of whether it's global warming or environmental imbalance hugely. So I am very concerned. I think that our focus on growth today, on economic growth, is very commendable. But that growth is not sustainable unless we are able to focus on and resolve our current energy problems. And one of the reasons why I fully support the 123 agreement, for example, is because it does allow us to build up one important component of the energy package, which is nuclear civil energy.
But you talked about a very interesting point about the linkage between energy, economy and environment. Now tell me something, because it looks like in India particularly that the world is concerned with the effect of climate change. The global warming is a reality and people are suffering because of that. But I don't see much of awareness on climate change within the country. So what do you think really should be done? And as an industry representative, do you think we really need to do more? And who should really do that if we want to do more?
Oh, I think we have to do a lot more. I mean, one positive thing is that over the last 2 years, there has been at least an awareness that global warming is going to impact India. The debate within India is also now over. People recognize that global warming is not just a problem for the rest of the world. It's a serious problem for us. But that said, I don't think we are doing enough to actually arrest the trend of emissions in our country. Now, there's a debate, of course, as to whether the West should finance the developing world, whether the polluter should pay. That debate is going to carry on, and I'm not going to get into that debate. I think there's a lot of logic and relevance in focusing on the West and asking them to actually pay through technology and through financial resources the consequences, pay for the consequences of their development. But if you put that aside for the moment, within India itself,
that's a political debate.
That's a political debate. But within India, we are one of the most inefficient users of energy in the country. We can do so much to improve energy efficiency. We are also not very rigorous about demand conservation. We can do so much about reducing the demand by, again, focusing on a more rational, let's say, pricing policy. We don't pass on the price of oil, for example, to consumers. And I know that there's political logic for that. But still, demand is growing at too fast a rate. So the third thing that we are not doing is to access technology. There is today available around the world technology to green fossil fuels. And we are going to remain dependent on fossil fuels, hydrocarbons for the next 30 years at least. Whatever happens to, we are going to remain.
Commission document says
exactly. So we have to now recognize that our dependence on fossil fuels will impact the environment hugely unless we access technology like coal gasification technology or gas to liquids technology, which will allow us to reduce the emissions from fossil fuels. Now, we're not doing enough about that.
What do you think about this? You talked about greening of fossil fuel, and you mentioned two technologies which are really important, and we could do that, integrate them. What do you think about the prospect of carbon CCS, the carbon capture and storage technology? Is it really in the anvil somewhere near future, which will be a breakthrough because coal can be captured, gas can be captured, and it can be?
No, I think carbon capture and sequestration is a proven technology, incidentally. It's not as if we need to debate that. What is the problem right now is the commerciality of it. There's still a lot of work to be done to make this a commercially acceptable sort of method for capturing or for reducing carbon emissions. Now, in order to do that, companies must be given the proper policy framework and they must be provided the proper incentives. Whether it's a fiscal incentive, and I don't actually support a fiscal incentive. I actually think that companies can look for other forms of incentives, but without a proper policy framework, a stable policy framework that recognizes that CCS is one of the most important methods and most important technologies for reducing emissions, we're not going to get companies to spend the kind of money on research and development that is required to make this technology commercial. So this has got to be a partnership between government and the business. The problem right now,
which will benefit the country.
It will benefit the country. The problem is that there's a sort of a catch-22 situation prevailing in the country. In fact, catch-22 situation prevails right across the world. The companies are waiting for governments to prescribe a stable policy framework. The governments, on the other hand, are worried that if they do impose a kind of a framework or regulatory framework on business, it will sort of impact vested interests. So neither party is doing enough. And you have to break that catch-22 if you're going to actually make substantive progress
So
on
the present
CCS.
players will get affected. That's the worry, and therefore the government is not moving forward.
Not moving fast
and
enough.
not really trying to capture the benefits of
Absolutely,
future.
yeah.
So in the coal capture and storage, we'll be able to capture the benefit of future, not just capture carbon. So, but that's what is not happening. You mentioned about two things. One is, of course, using our own fossil fuel resources like coal and gas, which is available within the country from energy security angle. Efficiency, which can actually be the least cost option, can improve our probably energy demand also can be properly managed. 30% improvement can take place just by that, as you said. Now, third component of that we'll have to consider is alternate energy to fossil fuel. Now, the renewables, which is either come from solar or wind or something. What do you think is the potential for that in the country, and do you have a proper policy support to make that happen?
I think the potential is huge, but one has to answer that question within a time frame. Is that potential going to be realized within the next 2 decades or next 5 decades? And I'm only saying that because we have recognized that we don't have time now to sort of talk about the potential for renewables, because the need of the hour is to reduce the carbon emissions within the next 10 to 20 years. The latest report of the IGPCC says that the current concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere is 375 parts per million. And the temperature, average temperature, if we want to cap the increase of the temperature to 2 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial revolution temperature levels, we will have to limit the concentration of CO2 to 450 parts per million. That means that we actually only have between 10 to 20 years to achieve that. So time is running out. And within that time frame, we don't have the...
I think here also the slight time is running out for a break. We'll come back to you. We'll take a short break, come back to you. Don't go away. We'll continue our conversation, very interesting one, with Mr. Vikram Mehta on what India should be doing to deal with our energy crisis. Please stay with us. Welcome back to our program Top Shot. We are talking to Mr. Vikram Mehta, Chairman of Shell India, about various issues related to energy as well as the person whom we are really proud of. Mr. Mehta, we are talking about just before the break about what India should be doing on renewable energy. In fact, India was the first country to have set up an independent ministry for renewable energy called Ministry for Non-Conventional Energy. But I think we always do unconventional things by setting up ministries, and we think it's an end in itself. But after that, we have not seen any breakthroughs in terms of new technology developed indigenously or things like this. So the point you said is very important, that it's a medium-term issue now, because we have an immediate problem on hand. We are sinking, so we have to first stop sinking because of the globe. And therefore, but what really should be doing in renewable energy as a country or as a world, because you are a global company?
I think we have to put more money into technologies for solar and wind and biofuels, biomass. The solar, for instance, we talk of silicon chips, but in fact now a lot of effort is going towards the thin films, second generation technology for solar. That has got to be broken. That has to be the focus, because that will then reduce the cost of solar to a level that makes it competitive against natural gas. The same, I think, focus has to be on second generation biofuels. Today, one of the concerns all over the globe, and it will be in India, is food security versus fuel security, and that is focused on biofuels. Unless we actually now begin to look at technologies that generates biofuels from cellulose material, then we will constantly have this clash between food and fuel. So there again, we need to focus a lot more attention on the second generation biofuel technology. Wind, well, again, that's the same issue. But the fundamental, I think, driver of our policy must be twofold. One, we must actually bring all these various ministries together under one sort of umbrella ministry, which has executive authority that is able to then generate a policy that recognizes both the short-term needs versus the medium versus the long-term, and also then the competitiveness of fossil fuels which we have versus the importance versus the non-fossil fuel alternatives. If we can take an integrated holistic approach, that I think is a very important first step. Secondly, we have to look for a set of practical measures that are focused on technology, and that must involve business. Business is the driver of technology around the world, and it is also in India. So we haven't got that partnership between public and private sort of entities, and that's what I think what's got to be our focus area now.
So I think the technology will be the driving force.
Absolutely.
And I think India claims to be the second largest, third largest pool of technically qualified people. So I think we could be the right destination to develop the technology. You know, one you mentioned very importantly about food versus fuel. That's going to be a major crisis. You know, now when we talk about biofuels, we are actually going to use huge amount of water along with land, of course. And land is a scarce commodity, it's a resource. So is water now, because just 4% of the water of the world. So you think, is it a good idea to stop burning fossil fuel, but in biofuel start burning water? That's what we are really going to do. So do you think it's we need to have a proper trade-off in this?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think the trade-off is not going to be on the technologies that we're currently focused on. I think we have to go beyond it.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to constantly have this clash, whether it's food, whether it's water, whether, you know, this is where I think the problems of government arises, that there isn't that long-term sort of vision within the policy framework. And I'm not criticizing individuals. I'm just saying that today the system is such that we get focused on the immediate requirements, and whereas the demand is actually going to only be resolved if we take a statesman-like approach and look at the medium and longer term.
You know, but this is a very important issue, that the structural problem of the governance, in which many ministries, many individuals, they think in their own way, but as a collective institution they cannot deliver. So having worked in the government for some time and actually being an IS officer, so the real custodian of the civil service, what do you think type of administrative changes we should do, particularly in the energy sector? What really type of changes you envisage would really bring about a change that we want?
Well, I am a great admirer of the people that work for our public sector. I mean, I'm not saying this just because of, you know, just to flatter them. I really think that some of the best talent,
really an example of that.
And I really think some of the best talent is in our public service, public sector. But they are not able to realize their full sort of potential because they are shackled, you know, the system. So the first thing that we have to do is somehow or the other find ways that are politically feasible to unshackle the public sector companies, to give them greater autonomy. I mean, today we are pushing 3 of our most solid oil companies to the wall, IOC, BPC and HPC. They are going to lose, or as they say, under-recover 95,000 crore rupees in this fiscal year because of government's refusal to allow them to, pass on the price of crude oil. Now, I can understand the logic of government, but what I can't understand is how the government can accept basically allowing their 3 Navratna companies to go to the wall. And also, this goes back to my earlier point, the bill will have to be paid by someone. And that someone is in the next generation. So I think what we need to do is not to change the whole structural system, but just incrementally allow the companies that we have already got established to manage their companies without the bureaucracy and, with due respect, the politicians standing on top of them all the time. They are dependent, they are responsible to you, they are responsible to their shareholders, but let them at least run their companies on a commercial basis.
This is a very important political decision we'll have to take, and we'll have to go ahead with that. You know, you mentioned about how the oil is going to impact, the fossil fuel economy is going to impact. Do you think, rather than being an alarmist, but still at the same time being a realist, that if you don't take proper steps now to deal with our energy problem, our economic growth of 9%, which we are really proud of, can be very adversely impacted?
I have said it in writing. I think that if we are not able to resolve our energy problem, we cannot sustain a double-digit growth for certain, and maybe even 9% growth. That I'm clear about. It will not happen. The hurdle will not come up in the next 2-3 years. But 5 years onwards, we will not be able to. Business will not be able to grow at the rate it's growing. People will not be able to consume at the rate they're consuming because of a severe shortage of energy, and because of the environmental impact of the pattern of energy consumption in our country. So energy, along with infrastructure, of course, the rest of infrastructure is got to be the most crucial issues for our country now, insofar as economic matters are concerned.
So there is already a red signal we can see, because we are not allowing to green policies to come in. That's why there's a red signal been seen, and also because of this growth will be very adversely impacted, so we'll have to stop somewhere. So probably this is a very important issue. Just you are doing so many things in your personal life where you are trying to also impact the change in society in many ways. I think your organization has decided to come out of shell and try to do something more for the society in terms of giving them some help and changing the lives of some common people who are actually not still a beneficiary of this economic change. Can you just describe what really you are trying to do in terms of changing the lives of people who are not really your consumers, but you feel they...
one of the reasons I'm with Shell, and the reason I'm proud to be with Shell, is because Shell has a very strong commitment to the wider stakeholder community outside its shareholders. It's not a philanthropic organization, so it's focused on profits, but it is most certainly now spending a large amount of time and management effort to impact positively the rest of society. Now in India, for example, we have several programs, but one program, for example, is in partnership with an NGO, with local panchayats, to create these smokeless chulas, which we then give to the villagers to sell in order to create income for themselves. Now, just to be clear, none of these chulas are branded Shell. There's no Shell branding here. We finance it, and we also help the program through management efforts or management advice and financial advice. We're doing a program in South India where we are funding small entrepreneurs to do a whole range of things, from selling solar batteries to kirana shops, to buying little bullock carts to help villagers actually generate income for themselves. None of this is Shell branded. The other day, in fact 4 days ago, I received an award from the President of India on behalf of the company for our contribution to disabled people. And we've done a lot for disability. So I really don't want to boast about Shell, but I think what fundamentally I'd like to say is that all of us in business are not going to be able to grow our business unless we are focused on the problems of society. That I am absolutely clear about.
I think that's a very important issue. So not only you help the disabled, but you also enable the other economic activity for the poor, and that's something very important. I hope many more companies will follow that. Tell me, you have been really a global company. I think you operate in almost all the world major countries of the world. And in India, we had the debate from 1991 whether to allow the multinationals to come in and not to come in. But now I think we have accepted the role of multinationals in development of the country. How do you think, have you seen this transition, because you have been with Shell for some time? How do you see the change has really taken place from people being little bit apprehensive of multinationals to their being now accepting them as a partner, like you just mentioned, that local communities, you're helping them to inhale a better air, because smokeless chulas will mean that for the women. How do you think the transition had taken place?
See, initially in 91, as you know, there were two problems, or the two sort of constraints to accepting the multinationals. One was this sort of residual feeling amongst the government, bureaucrats and politicians, that multinationals are in fact not working for the interest of the country. There was still that, even though the government policies were liberalizing for reasons that we all know, there was still the residual antipathy towards the multinational. The second constraint was that the Indian business thought that multinationals will come in and essentially destroy their business. Today, 15 years later, two things have happened. One is that most of the government and politicians have recognized that, in fact, multinationals are not bad capitalists. Multinationals can be, not everyone, can be good capitalists. Now, there are examples like Enron where you really had a disaster, and and the energy company, and I really can make no excuse for them. But in general, most of the companies that are in India have recognized that they have to work with India. They have to work as partners with India. They can't work, in conflict with the interests of the nation. If they did, they're going to be out of the country. They can't survive. And the second very important thing that has happened is that Indian businesses have recognized that multinationals are actually not this phenomenal success story. They come here and they can be successful, but more often than not, the Indian business have outcompeted them.
That's right.
I mean, we are successful up to a point.
I know.
But some of the most successful companies in India in energy are Indian companies. And we know that.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why I think it's important to invite as many companies into this country as possible, because you do then get this competitive spirit, which is fundamental to the growth of our company, our country.
I know you are not an astrologer, and I know that, but tell me something. If you want to take a forecast on oil, where do you think it will really reach in the next 6 months' time? We are already touching 100, and everybody is worried that maybe it will touch 150. The OPEC is saying they want to reduce the price band to 60, 70. What do you think oil is heading for?
Yeah, I'm going to duck that question a little bit, because I wouldn't want to make a forecast, otherwise I might lose my job.
I know,
But I can give an answer in a different sort of way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I firstly don't think that the price of oil today, say it's 90, 95, it's not quite, it's slightly below now, but is based on the fundamentals of demand and supply.
Yeah.
If the price was reflecting pure demand and supply of oil, it would be lower.
Yeah.
The reason why oil prices are at the level they are today is because of two factors. I mean, apart from demand and supply, there are additional two factors. And that is, one is that there is this geopolitical concern, and will Mr. Bush do something in Iran? Will Iraq and
a lot of externalities.
And that's the concern. And the second is the Wall Street speculator.
Yeah.
The financial speculator is playing the oil market. He's buying paper.
Yeah.
And billions of dollars of money is being traded on the oil market in paper, on the basis of a news item that comes out of the Iraq, or a news item that comes out of Middle East. And that alone has pushed up the prices by maybe $10 to $15.
I know. So
now,
if that
anything can happen, you see.
I know. It can go either way, what you are really saying is, hopefully, if the fundamentals really play a role, then the prices should really come down. And I hope that really happens, because this is one of the major concerns of the country. How do you actually manage the prices of oil, energy security? But I'm very glad that you shared all these ideas with us. I'm sure, Mr. Mehta, you will join us some more time to talk to us about many issues. Thank you very much for joining us today. This was Mr. Vikram Mehta talking to us about many issues, particularly in the energy sector. The chairman of Shell India sharing his views on what really India should be doing. Has we done enough? I'm very happy that we have benefited from his knowledge today. Thank you very much for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you soon. Join us for the next episode of Top Shot. Thank you.